Ever spent $300 on a custom controller just for it to feel like a $30 piece of junk in a week? I've been there. I've tried dozens of controllers over the years, regular controllers, custom controllers, you name it. And it's always the same story. Stick drift issues, cheap thumbsticks, the grip wearing out, or the buttons on the back that just stop working. I can't be the only one frustrated by this, right? Especially when you spend all this money hoping for a good upgrade. But when I picked up this controller from Cinch Gaming, I thought, maybe this one will finally break the curse. Spoiler alert, I was wrong. Let me explain. Right out of the box, this controller just felt different. Premium. The grip looked and felt amazing. Way better than I expected. And the colors were exactly what I wanted. The controller feels light but sturdy. And the back buttons really just clicked. The thumbsticks were pretty standard. Basically the same as a regular PS5 controller, but that was a good thing. Compared to the PS4 Scuf controller that I used, where the sticks were quickly worn out, was a major improvement. You know that feeling when something feels just right in your hands? Yeah, and it had that. As a top 1% Warzone player, I need my controller to feel like an extension of my hand. But then it hit my first issue. The buttons felt too close together and in weird spots. I kept fumbling my gameplay. For someone who knows their controller without having to think about what buttons to press and do the actions they want to, this was rough. I'm talking missed reloads, accidental button presses, shooting when I don't mean to. It was bad. At first I thought I needed some time to adjust to the new controller, and I was right, but the discomfort I was feeling got worse. I started getting really bad hand cramps from holding the controller for long periods of time. That discomfort led to something worse, which were hand cramps, and even worse, when I wasn't playing, I was having issues with my hands hurting. Now, to be fair, I've streamed 589 hours and 53 minutes since I got this controller, so maybe I'm pushing my hands a little too hard and in an uncomfortable position. But even then, this controller is expensive. It should feel comfortable no matter how long I play. And then of course the stick drift started to creep in. At first it was just a little nudge, pushing my aim just a little bit off target. But over time, of course, it always gets worse. Eventually I realized it was something I couldn't ignore anymore and I needed a new controller. Just when I was ready to give up, I'd spent the extra money on custom colors, the grip, the buttons, and even a remap chip, and now I was debating if it was even worth it. But the remappable buttons were way nicer than I expected. The ability to remap the buttons and shift the workload between my hands was a lifesaver. It helped reduce the strain, fix the awkward button placement problems, and made the controller feel almost custom tailored to my playstyle. Here's the catch, the remap chip isn't included. I had to pay extra for it. It was an add-on that boosted the price even higher. The remap chip saved the day, but at this point, with so many controller brands on the market, it feels like it's something that should be standard at this point, at this price point. I want to take a moment to mention that this Cinch controller was from my good friend Darius at Apogee Transportation. So here's the deal, this controller isn't perfect, but it did some things better than I expected. The grip and the build quality are solid. The thumbsticks didn't wear out at all compared to the Scuf. Add the remap chip in this controller is super versatile and easy to use. But it's not without its issues. The button placement just felt so awkward and pressing the buttons put a lot of strain on my hands. The stick drift only got worse and worse over time, but most controllers are like that. To give you some perspective, I've had two Beaver controllers and they also have buttons on the back similar to the Cinch. Both of them have had back button issues where the back button stops to work. So how does the Cinch stack up against the rest? In terms of the grip, it felt great compared against something like the Scuf, but the Beaver controller, the grip came off and felt really cheap. In terms of the buttons on the back, it felt great because they didn't end up breaking like the Beaver did. In terms of the stick, it felt great. Just like the Beaver, they use more of the basic controller, and unlike Scuf that has custom sticks, they don't get worn out as easily. While the Scuf sticks are nice, it's just not worth the fact that they always break. The awkward button placement was the biggest issue to me. Having issues with my hands, I wish the back buttons were more similar to the Beaver. If you keep your middle and ring finger very close together on the back of the controller, this could be perfect for you, but for my playstyle and how my hands fit on the controller, I prefer not to have them stand there. At the end of the day, it's a bit of a gamble. Some of the controllers are better at some things that the others aren't. Would I recommend a Cinch controller over the other options? In terms of how long this controller has lasted compared to the two Beavers and the Scuf that I've had, I would say this is a pretty decent option. The controller lasts and feels good for a long period of time. The biggest issue for me was the button placement, and the stick drift, of course, I ended up getting a little bit on all of the controllers, but this one held out for a pretty long time before it got really bad.